This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Let me just sum it up. I like our team. I like our team a lot. And I think when you play 82 games, there's going to be games that you play well and you don't get points. And then there's going to be games that you don't play very well and you get points. And the teams that don't play very well that get points, if they do that a lot, they're probably not going to go very far. It's the teams that are consistently play well. You know, unfortunately, you get beat by a goalie or for whatever, but you consistently are outplaying teams. And those are teams that seem to win in the end. And I think anybody that was watching this game knows that the better team that played 60 minutes or 65 minutes tonight didn't get the 2 points. But am I upset about it? No, because it's 82 games, man, and you need to scrape points any way you can. And for a lot of games this year, like, we've walked away from the game like scratching your head, like, how did we not get a point out of that? So it's a little bit what comes around goes around, and it's nice that happened against a divisional opponent, somebody that we're in the tight race with. But it's I can't sit here and look at my guys in the eye and say, "What'd you guys like? What happened here?" We all know our circumstances coming out of the break, and for them to win both these games, I tip my hat to them. So good on them for getting 4 of these points. It may not look the prettiest, but they found a way. And good teams find a way.
Man, a lot to unpack with what John Cooper said there. I'll try to sum it up, and we will try and sum it up here on Power Lunch on Lightning Radio. It is a tape version. Dave Mishkin, my partner in crime, is going to be going out the West Coast route here in just a little bit, so we got to make sure he gets out there and catches that flight. But we have a couple of games to unpack, partner, because there was some good stuff that happened over the weekend. Let me take the 30,000-foot view for both games, and then we can kind of get into, if we want to do Montreal first because it's the most relevant, and then work our way back. However you want to go, I'm fine with. You know, and I think John Cooper kind of illustrated and depicted that pretty well. This is an 82-game season. Not every game is going to be pretty. Some might have suggested that last night's game against the Montreal Canadiens could have been a scheduled loss for Tampa Bay, understanding that Montreal was waiting and resting, ready to take on Tampa Bay, albeit on the road, coming off an emotional win against the Florida Panthers, which John Cooper talked to the media about before the game, saying those are really tough games. They drain you. And he was right. However, disappointing they weren't able to protect a multi-goal lead against the Canadiens. Totally get it. Some things that, popped up that we can get into for sure that needs rectified, but they got 4 points against two teams who I think are pretty good, two very good, in the division. And understanding the circumstances and the injuries, we find out Ryan McDonough put on IR again, and just constant rotation of players coming in and out of the lineup to get 4 points against those two teams. Partner, I'm going to take that every single time. We can quibble about how they got there, but collectively for the Lightning and where they are, that's a pretty good weekend.
Well, I mean, we can take the Montreal game first, but I don't think there's much to quibble about with the Florida game. I mean, they went into Sunrise, and they played well. I mean, they deserved to win that game, in my mind. And there was a lot of headwind in that game. They were shorthanded 10 times. Now, some of that was a little bit of their own doing. They have to own some of the penalties that they took. But to me, the Saturday game was way different than the Sunday game. And I agree with you. All teams are going to have this. I just don't like, and the Lightning could have chosen to play the game on Sunday at 7. I mean, they choose when the start time is. But the league can schedule back-to-backs within 22 hours. You can't go any earlier than that. In other words, you can't have 2 games 21 hours apart. These 2 games were 22 hours apart. I am not crazy about this scheduling. there were a lot of teams that played on the 27th, Saturday. Montreal was not one of them. That maybe would have been too difficult for the Canadiens to play somewhere other than Sunrise and get to Tampa for a 5 o'clock game. But if you're the home team, that's a tough one. I mean, you're coming out of the break. Your opponent is there waiting for you. I mean, the league scheduled Lightning at Panthers. Okay. They could have scheduled Lightning at Carolina. They could have scheduled Lightning at somewhere else. They could have had the Lightning at home, which we've seen after Christmas, playing on back-to-back nights. The Lightning-Panthers game was going to be an emotionally charged game, so that was baked into the cake. What I'm not crazy about is the fact that the Lightning had to play a home game against a team that was waiting for them rested when they had played the night before 22 hours earlier. So, look, this is part of the schedule. We talk about it. Every team is going to have some games where the circumstances are running against them, and they're going to have games where the circumstances are running with them and for them. The Lightning blew a game not that long ago where they had advantageous circumstances. I'm talking about the Kings, who had played the night before in Sunrise. The Lightning were home, rested, waiting. They had 2 days off going into that game of no games. And they blew it, right? They didn't get any points. The Kings beat them 2-1. So last night, the Lightning had a circumstantial disadvantage. Now, I will give Montreal high marks because just because you have an advantage circumstantially doesn't mean that necessarily plays out exactly how you might expect on the ice. Montreal played very well. So this is what I think about the Canadiens because they've improved defensively. Statistically, they've improved since the first meeting. If you remember when the teams met in Montreal, and that was when the Lightning were on a losing streak, and they beat the Canadiens pretty decisively. I mean, it was 6-1. I know they pulled away in the third. They jumped out to a big lead. The game in Montreal was much different than the game last night. But going into that game, if you remember, Greg, what we said about the Canadiens was their top guys are dealers. Like they are terrific top players. Their power play with their top players on it, great. And they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but they're not really outstanding defensively. They were 29th in the NHL at the time defensively. They lose that game to the Lightning 6-1, so that didn't help their defensive stats. They'd played 8 games since going to last night. Their defensive numbers had improved. I think that they were in the low 20s. So they went from 29th to like 22nd. Well, what happened? Part of it is they brought up this Jacob Fowler, who's Florida-born. We mentioned that. He's the first NHL goalie ever born in Florida, and he grew up in Florida. It's not like he was born in Florida and
right.
Like Dan Heino was born in Florida, played in the NHL, but he didn't learn to play hockey in Florida. Fowler did. Fowler ended up going on to the USHL, a couple of years at BC, drafted. He's now in the NHL. Congratulations to him. So he came up. He didn't play every one of those 8 games, but he played 5 of them. He went 3-1-1. They were improving defensively, and they were still scoring. This is one reason why they entered last night's game tied with the Lightning, or the Lightning were tied with them in the standings. So what did I see last night about Montreal? I'm not certain the Canadiens are any better defensively. What they did well last night was they had the puck. They had the puck a lot. And if you're going to give their top guys the puck, they're similar to the Lightning. Brian Engblom refers to the Lightning as a feel team. The Canadiens are a feel team. When Suzuki is touching the puck, when Slavkovsky is touching the puck, when Caulfield is touching the puck, Hudson, Dobson, Demidov, these guys love the puck. They love to have the puck. And if they're going to have the puck, I mean, in the first and third periods, the Canadiens had the puck probably 80% of the time. You're asking for trouble. The Lightning also didn't do a great job of staying out of the box in the first period. They got through those kills. But again, that allowed the Canadiens to have the puck a lot. They are a fast team. They're a skilled team. They are a dynamic offensive team. And I think Deno will help them. I mean, he won the face-off at the end of the game, which led to the tying goal. I'm not sure he's going to provide a lot of offense, but he does have the pedigree of being a good defensive center. They're going to need to improve defensively. And so what did I see last night that leads me to believe they're not much better defensively? Look at the mistakes they made. In a game in which the Lightning hardly had any possession, look at the chances the Lightning got. Kucherov a breakaway. A 3-on-2 that was the first 2 goals were a little bit of function of bad breaks for the Canadiens, but they still gave up the chances. 2-on-1 for Bjorkstrand and Paul. They give a 2-on-0. When Kucherov came out of the box, Hagel was behind the play. So, I mean, honestly, it was a game in which the Lightning, what did they finish with? 22 shots on net, 48 attempts. Of their 48 attempts, 25 of them came in the second period, which was their best period. So what I'm saying is I'm giving the Canadiens credit because they had an advantage circumstantially, and they played the sort of game that they want to play. I just think moving forward, if you're giving up more than 3 goals a game, you're giving up the sort of chances that the Canadiens have given up in the 2 games against the Lightning. Something's got to get better.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe this is one of those years where you can just outscore your problems. Everybody is bunched together in the standings, and you can't argue with where the Canadiens are in the standings as we approach the halfway point of the year. Anyway, this game unfolded in a way in which the Canadiens probably should have won the game 6-1. They should have. I mean, they should have been up multiple goals in the first period, and then the Lightning are like, they were trying. The Lightning were trying. It just wasn't there. And the part of Cooper's quote that Steve, I'm not sure that if he played this part, but what he said was, when you're a tired team, one of the first things to go is the mind. I think the Lightning were trying. They were trying to battle. Just they were digging deep, and in the first and third periods, it wasn't there. Some of it was physical. A lot of it was mental. In the second period, they got momentum, and that helped. And they outplayed the Canadiens in the second period. Not by a wide margin, but they got the early goal from Kucherov in the second period on a mistake. Demidov broke his stick, but, I mean, the 2 defensemen let Kucherov walk right behind them. And they should have been able to sense danger. It's not like Demidov broke his stick, right before the puck was turned over. He broke his stick. The puck slid slowly to Gonzalez. And the 2D are just like out for a Sunday afternoon stroll. Kucherov walks right behind them. He has a breakaway from the red line in.
Yeah, right.
That changed momentum. And then the Lightning got a little juice, right? And before the period was up, they had a 3-goal lead. They also got an answer goal from Holmberg after the Canadiens scored early in the third. But it was coming. Like, they just didn't have it last night. And, you might say, how did the Lightning give up 4 goals in a period? The Canadiens had 40 shot attempts in the third period. 40. That's hard to do. Now, look, they were looking to shoot, right? Only 16 of them went on net. So the Lightning were doing what they could to block shots, get in the lanes, battling. They were just swimming upstream the whole period. And could have they won the game in regulation? They could have. I mean, they had an unforced icing, not the one at the end of the game, but they were actually, the Gord line was in the offensive zone. The Canadiens couldn't pull the goalie. They finally got it out, and Moser missed on a pass to Gord. I think if the Lightning are not in the situation they're in, that pass is on the tape. It gets deflected in. The Canadiens are like, we still can't pull the goalie. Instead, it's an icing. They were able to pull Fowler, set up the 6-on-5. It's not like they had a ton of chances either on the 6-on-5. The Lightning had a couple of looks at the open net. They couldn't score. But, like, that unforced icing probably doesn't happen if we're looking at a different sort of circumstance where the Lightning are not as mentally drained and physically drained as they were. That's just one example. That's what we saw last night. So in some ways, like you were saying, the Canadiens are a good opponent because it has the Lightning's attention. In some ways, the Canadiens were not a great opponent because when you are a tired team, they can exploit you because they are fast and they love to have the puck. And both those things we saw last night. So I think Eric Erlandson had the article today titled, like, don't apologize. The Lightning are not going to apologize for getting 2 points because there have been so many games, so many more games than the ones that we had last night than the ones that we saw last night have been in the minority. I'm not sure the Lightning have had a lot of these games. Way more of the other type where they have leaned on the other team and they didn't even get a point. The Canadiens got a point last night. Lightning come out of a game, they're like, how did we get no points out of this game? We outplayed the other team. Last night they got outplayed. They got the 2 points. They won't apologize for that.
There's some interesting bullet points I want to just run through quickly or not, and we can take some questions as well, some more observations. You kind of hit on this. Johansson was the best player, I thought, on the ice for Tampa Bay, particularly
especially in the first period.
In the first period.
His work meant that the Lightning never trailed in that game.
He was outstanding.
Was important.
He was outstanding, and I know his numbers are never going to look great. They never do. whether it's a save percentage below 90, whether it's a goals against, it's a little higher. He's put in some tough circumstances. That's the nature of being a backup goaltender. Sometimes your team doesn't have the juice and the legs in front of you, and sometimes you are just not playing at a very high level. So I think one of the things that stood out to me was the ability that he gave in the first period in particular, that allowed the Lightning to salvage a couple of points. He was outstanding. The other thing, too, is I think we thought James was going to have an opportunity maybe to come into the lineup because of, just another guy who could maybe have some fresh legs and maybe provide a little juice. It didn't necessarily happen. Not that it was a bad decision. It was just more of an observation.
Yeah. Hagel came back. So Hagel
back.
took Douglas's spot from the Saturday game. They kept Sabrin in the lineup, but they lost Sabrin when he got popped. I mean, that was we can get into
that too. I mean, that
was a no defense fight, and Jack Guy got him. So the Lightning had to go the last 2 periods with 11.
Jack Guy's a tough guy. So is Sabrin, and his punches were hitting. Although, as we were talking about in the last call, Jack Guy really was able to kind of defend himself just using the helmet as a shield, and then he was able to sneak one and get Sabrin pretty good. Those are 2 tough customers, and that was a heck of a fight, from that perspective. So Gonçalves, another game where he showed up, and I know we have some questions regarding him. That was also a very positive thing, I think, to see. Kucherov did have an opportunity in overtime to win it. That ice is tilted when you lose the faceoff, the original faceoff from center ice. And we saw the Canadiens, it felt like for the first 2.5 minutes, just really controlled play. I mean, the Lightning players were dead tired.
Let me just talk about the overtime. This was an outstanding overtime for the Lightning. And people are like, what are you talking about? They didn't have the puck for most of the overtime. Yeah, they didn't have the puck. How many times over the last few years have the Lightning lost a game in overtime where they lose the faceoff and they basically never touch the puck? And the other team, the strategy is to hold on to the puck because it's the long change in overtime. I understand it's only 3 guys, but your red line is across, your bench is across the red line from the defensive zone. That's what I'm trying to say. It's been a long weekend for me too. So what happened, I think J.J. Moser, I should look it up. J.J. Moser might have had a 2-minute shift to start overtime. And this is harder hockey than 5-on-5 because everything is man-to-man. So the Canadian strategy, and it's a strategy that a lot of teams use when they understand that they have the puck, they don't look to just shoot indiscriminately. You really hold on to the puck. It's almost like you're wearing down the defense in football by running the ball. Keep them on the field, right? And a tired player is more likely to make a mistake that's going to lead to a tremendous scoring chance. Because if you just shoot indiscriminately, if the goalie makes the save on a lower percentage shot of going in, then the other team may get the puck and they can get their tired guys off the ice. That's the strategy. That's why you see teams like skate back to center ice, protect the puck, but they're not letting the 3 defenders get off the ice.
Correct.
So the 3 guys who started, I think it was Paul, Moser, and Gensel. I think those were the 3 who started overtime.
Paul started for the faceoff.
Paul started for the faceoff, which he lost.
Right.
Yeah, he's had a good year. He had a tough night last night in the circle. I think he went 5-10.
Yeah.
He lost that one. So for what the Lightning didn't allow the Canadiens to do was break them down. That is so hard.
That is, yeah.
I mean, those 3 guys hung in there. They probably had jelly for legs. And they had the Canadiens had the high skill guys out there. They had Caulfield is really good in overtime. He scored a bunch of goals in overtime. So is Suzuki. They had Hudson. They had Suzuki. They had Dobson.
They got those young legs.
They had Caulfield. They had Demi. Like they had their guys that were like, let me sit down at Thanksgiving dinner and give me the food, right? Like they were waiting for something juicy to open up. Nothing juicy opened up to the point that, my wife and daughter were at the game last night. When I saw them afterward, my daughter was like, that was kind of a boring overtime. And I'm like, yeah, that was good. It was a boring overtime because the Lightning didn't have the puck. They didn't let up anything that would have led to a tremendous chance. That was a remarkable performance for the Lightning to get through, particularly the early part of overtime. I think the second half of it, possession was a little bit more even. You mentioned Kucherov had a look. The play-by-play had Cirelli hitting the post near the end. I don't really remember that as being a particularly dangerous chance. But for all the possession they had in overtime, the Canadiens had 4 shot attempts. That was it, because they were holding on to it, looking for something better that never materialized, which is a credit to the Lightning. And then they got to the shootout. Gonçalves is very good in the shootout. I want to say he didn't play in the first game that the Lightning had that went to the shootout, the game against the Islanders. And points scored. Points now 2 for 2 in the shootout this year.
Came with speed.
Yeah, Gonçalves didn't, but Gonçalves is very sneaky.
Yeah.
And, I have to wonder if, Gonçalves and Fowler wouldn't have seen each other because Fowler only got to the AHL at the end of last year after his college season ended, and then he was in the AHL this year, and Gonçalves has been up. But, even goalies that know Gonçalves have trouble stopping him, where, he's done very, very well at the AHL level. Anyway, once the Lightning got the game to the shootout, then it became a coin toss, and they happened to win the coin toss. But I wanted to mention the overtime because, yes, there wasn't a lot of activity in overtime, and that actually was good for the Lightning in terms of, chances, lots of great A's.
All of that is completely accurate. Hanging in there is a great way to describe the OT, and they really did. And they, like I said, they even had a chance to win it. Albeit
yes, they did.
Didn't have the puck a ton, but look, anytime Kucherov has the puck on his stick, you're going to take your chances, even if it's just for one opportunity out of the 5 minutes that we saw. Gross.
By the way, they had Paul in overtime, a 1 minute 57 second shift.
You know who was out there a long time too for Montreal, and I like his game. I actually think he's come into his own really over the last handful of years. Matheson.
Mm-hmm.
He can skate.
Very good skater,
I think he might. Do you have the numbers for him on that shift in overtime? Because I feel
I'm looking at the Lightning guys. So Gensel was 153. So Paul and Gensel were out there for close to 2 minutes. And let me just check Moser.
I feel like Matheson might have been out there.
Moser was out there for 2 minutes and 20 seconds to start overtime. He could barely get off the ice. He didn't play. They didn't put him back out there.
He earned that extension, didn't he, on
Matheson, Matheson wouldn't have had a long shift because they would have been careful to get their guys off the ice to keep their shifts a little shorter, but I'll check him. So Matheson in overtime was out there. He didn't start overtime, but he had a 1 minute 13 second shift.
It felt like he was everywhere.
Bordering on a little bit on the longer side.
But he can skate. He's a go go-go guy, and so on 3-on-3
it's man to man. So first of all, there's more ice to cover, and second of all, you're having to. It's hard work. You have to. The other team is crisscrossing and zigzagging, and you're stopping and starting, and they know what they want to do. You don't. You just have to stay with them. Very, very hard work and great work by those three guys. The first 2 minutes they were out there without the puck.
It's a valid point, and I think it's something to acknowledge. Groshev, got his debut in, even gets an assist, secondary assist, right? Which was great to see. I tell you what, his first shift of the game, and I think he started, correct? I want to say he started.
It might have been their only shift together.
Yes, because he quickly went to stew with Groshev, correct?
Yeah, Zetler, I was like, I'm not sure about, because they didn't have a good opening shift, which may have been less about Crozier and Groshev and more just about this is the way this game was going to go, right?
So I think Groshev had some opportunities to get the puck out. I think, things happen quicker. Look, you give the guy a pass. I mean, it's his first NHL game, but he was out there. I don't want to say for 2 minutes. It felt like it before he was able to get off the ice.
I don't think it was 2 minutes.
Man,
it probably wasn't the ideal opening shift for him.
But, you could see the things the Lightning like in him, which is his skating ability, and I think he has a pretty good stick. Now, the other
it was a reasonably lengthy shift in that it was 47 seconds. It wasn't crazy, but they spent the entire shift in the defensive zone.
Maybe that's what it was. It
without
felt
the puck,
Yes, it felt like he was there. But, that was pretty cool to see. And, who knows how many more games he's going to get, for Tampa Bay, understanding.
Well, McDonough is on the injured list. It is interesting that they sent down Santini. That choice meant that they were going to put Destu on the right.
Good point.
Because with Santini, you got three righties. You got Radish, you got Crozier, you got Santini. So, and Santini has a lot more experience, obviously, than Groshev. But they wanted to give Groshev a look. And maybe they were thinking, this is going to add a little life. They understood that this was a tough scheduling situation.
Yeah.
and this is going to add a little juice to the lineup, which, I mean, it may have. I think the Lightning players are very happy to see Groshev get his debut and get an assist as well, and play reasonably well. I think he acquitted himself well in his first game in a tough sort of game, right? But it's not like Santini did anything like egregiously poor in the Florida game, nor did he play a lot. I mean, he played a reasonable amount. Yeah. The guys who played a lot were the ones that were out there for the bulk of all those penalty kills in the Saturday game, which I don't know if we want to segue to that game, which is a whole other kettle of fish, right? But that was part of the weekend too, and, you know, really helped the Lightning. Like they jumped 4 points ahead of the Panthers since they came out of the break, because they beat the Panthers head-to-head, and then they won the game last night. Panthers play tonight. The Panthers have a back-to-back at home, Washington, Montreal. So, again, Montreal is going to be in Sunrise playing a team in the second half of a back-to-back, although the Panthers will not have traveled. And then the Panthers have the outdoor game against the Rangers on January 2nd.
We can move on to, if we want to dissect.
Yeah, there's anything more you want to touch on?
No, I was just going to say, you know, I think the one thing that was interesting we talked about on the last call last night is that the Lightning do a really good job of rewarding players down in Syracuse a call-up. And I think this might have been something like that. We saw Groshev come up earlier in the year, didn't play, being around the team, being familiar with the settings. But I have always maintained, partner, over the last decade, we have seen some pretty high-end prospects come up and get their feet wet. But we've also seen some guys who have come up, not necessarily maybe on your radar, maybe not the top 5 prospects that you have in your organization, that come up and get rewarded for their play. Doesn't mean they stick. But the Lightning, I think it is very important to show the guys down in Syracuse that if you do play well, there is a chance you do get called up, regardless of your status within the organization. And I think the Lightning have done a pretty good job of that. And I think Groshev, that might have been a nice example of that. You know, they bring the guy up. All right, now you're going to play. Now you get to see what it's like. But you know what? We're also rewarding you because you've done a really good job considering you actually had to change positions. And that's hard to do.
Right.
And we want to let you know that we noticed that.
Well, this year, I think that they like doing that. And that is part of the philosophy of the organization. A season like last season, though, where they were up against the cap, and frankly, they didn't have a lot of injuries, it's harder to do that. This year, they aren't quite up against the cap as much, and they have had a lot of injuries. So when you have a lot of injuries, you can shuffle the deck chairs a little bit, because let me just use a couple of players as an example. Let's say you have no injuries, and you end up calling up a player, and that player does well. So you're going to keep that player up. Let's say like Declan Carlisle in the example that we have now. So Carlisle came up. He's still in the lineup, right? If you want to give another player a look, you either have to send down a Carlisle and call up the other player, or send down one of your regulars, which they aren't going to do, like an NHL regular. It has to be somebody that can move easily back and forth between the two teams, and sometimes it's a veteran guy like a Sabourin, right? But that player has cleared waivers already. There's no danger of losing him, or a player who is waiver exempt. Last year, the Lightning really didn't have open spots to speak of. This year they do, and because they have open spots due to the injuries, they have some flexibility about, like, let's give this guy a look. All right, this guy got some games. Let's send him down and bring up somebody else, because this player has also earned the right maybe to get a look. So I think that it is part of the organization's philosophy, but also, unfortunately, the injuries have allowed them, unfortunately, due to the fact that they have injuries, but the injuries have allowed them to do that a little more freely this year than certainly what we saw last year. And the players that have come up have shown that they've deserved the call-ups, right?
They've been really
to
good.
The point that some of them are like in the lineup, and like Destu, right? I mean, he's not going anywhere. But let's not forget, he started the season in the minors.
Yeah. I mean, this whole season, I want to get to the Panthers game too. I just want to say this. I can't stress enough how this season is setting up the Tampa Bay Lightning for the next handful of years with the depth that they have discovered.
Yeah.
It really has kept the window open. I hope people don't minimize this. Things change. I get it. Older players get hurt, which we are seeing. Star players may hit a wall, and their production may fall. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. But understand, I don't know if this externally people were anticipating. Usually retooling on the fly, or we got to take a bad season before we can. The Lightning they're finding some guys here who can play, and man, is it keeping things wide open for them. It's allowing them to be competitive when maybe another team who's dealing with these injuries would just be like, we can't overcome this.
Yeah,
we can't.
The Lightning have had injuries at forward, and look, the injuries at forward have been to some of their main players, like Sorelli, like Hagel, Kucherov. I'm not sure he's been injured, but he's had to miss some games due to illness, if I'm remembering right. Point was injured, missed 7 games. But really, it's been the defense. And if you go to any other team in the NHL and you're like, in the first half of the year, we're going to pull 3 of your top 4 defensemen out of the lineup for a significant amount of time. Like, they're going to miss at least half of the first half of the season. So they're going to be pulled out for over 20 games. How are you going to manage it? Let's just go and say your top 3 defensemen. I think Moser would have been in that mix as well, but at the start of the year, I'm not sure that we thought Moser was going to play as well as he's playing better this year than he did at the beginning of last year before the injury, and then I think after the injury, he felt the effects of missing that amount of time. The Moser that the Lightning have this year is playing the best that he has played since he's been with the Lightning. We didn't know that going into the season. If we had said at the start of the year, you're taking Hedman out, you're taking McDonough out, you're taking Chernak out for a significant amount of time, how are you going to manage? Right? So the Lightning managed. How many other teams could say the same? Whoever your top 4 are, let's take out for the Canadiens. Let's take out Hudson. Let's take out Matheson. Let's take out Dobson. How's their team going to look?
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. And by the way, that's not a knock.
No.
Most teams would be like,
right.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to call up these guys from the minor leagues and let's hope that we get, or they make a trade because they're like, we got to do something.
Now Alexander Carrier, who's, he's a solid NHL defenseman. Sure. Now he's your number 1 power play option. Is he going to turn into what Darren Radish has, I shouldn't say turn into, but is he going to be able to produce what Radish has produced?
It's been incredible.
Absence.
It really has. It was more of just, can we just acknowledge, take a step back. I know everything isn't going to be peaches and cream, but understand the Lightning, what you're seeing here is unusual in a cap era when there's a ton of parity, when a team like this has been winning for over a decade. When these injuries happen, usually you're going to go down. The Lightning have maintained this type of play due to their scouting and development, and that should not go unnoticed. I do want to get to the Panthers before we do that, partner. I want to make sure everybody enjoys some Refrum. It's smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. You can order a tropical wave or a lightning mule and taste why fans are switching. Refrum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrum by name. Go Bolts, enjoy responsibly. I think a lot of Lightning fans wanted some Refrum after that Panthers game.
Yes.
Not only because of what they had to endure watching the Panthers go on the power play an inordinate amount of time. I do think that was collectively unusual for that to happen. I'm surprised it was swinging to one side so much, and it really never balanced out. That's what makes the win so much more impressive on the road. And then, of course, you had the other stuff that was happening. We can get into that. A.J. Greer refuses to address the elephant in the room, which is at some point, are you going to drop the gloves and finish this, whatever we're doing every game, where you're kind of taking runs at our guys, but you're not really stepping to the plate to drop the gloves with one of our enforcers to settle whatever needs to be settled. And other guys are being thrown into this. We're seeing over-the-line hits again. Sabrin was right in the middle of things. I don't think people felt good about that game. And I know people watching it were like, oh, this is a great rivalry, and this is, oh, yeah, it is. But I also think it can be a great rivalry without having all of this other stuff because another team refuses to really address the issue, which is you've taken a lot of shots at our one guy. We've asked you to atone for it. You're not doing it. In fact, you decide you want to drop the gloves with Oliver Bjorkstrand, who's 175 pounds, maybe on a day where he has a cheeseburger. And I'm not too sure that does anything other than, hey, next time we play, it's probably going to happen again.
So this game had two parts, and I think I've said this a lot when the Lightning and Panthers have played. There was the hockey game, and then there was the other stuff. And in this instance, the two parts did intersect a little bit because the Lightning had all these penalty kills. By the way, I just want to mention, when I talked about the injured defenseman, I didn't even talk about Littleberg. It's probably because Littleberg has not missed most of the season at this point, but the Lightning are going to be going quite some time without Littleberg, who is also a very important part of their defense core. So just another one to add to the list. So it is very surprising that in a game like the one that we saw on Saturday, that one team would be shorthanded that much more than the other. And both teams were shorthanded a lot. I mean, the Lightning had 6 power plays, so it's not like they didn't get any power plays. But the Panthers got 10 power plays. And most of those came in the second half of the game. In fact, most of them came in the second half of the game, and they scored of the power plays they got, like once the Lightning went up 3-1, where most of those happened after they fell behind 3-1. 8 of the 10 happened after Kucherov scored to make it 3-1. The Panthers scored in the first of those. That was the Marchand goal. So 3-2 Lightning, close to the halfway point of the game. Over the final 30 minutes, the Panthers had 7 power play chances. 7. I mean, most teams don't get 7 in one full game. They got 7 basically in half a game. They spent half the third period on the power play. Like if you look at the minutes, basically. Right. They were on the power play for close to 10 minutes in the third period. And what was frustrating, I think, to the Lightning was so many of these calls went against the Lightning when it seemed to be either just a scrum and somehow the Lightning got the extra 2, or there was something missed on the Panthers, the Lightning retaliated, got the extra 2, and then there was a scrum. So like the Sabrin play, the Lightning should have been shorthanded out of that because Sabrin violently slashed Mikkola in the skates. Now, he didn't slash him in the arm, right? I mean, he didn't slash him in the head, but he did slash him hard. He got fined for it, and he was looking for retribution.
Yeah.
So the Lightning had to kill a double minor, and they gave Sabrin a 10-minute misconduct. All right. It's hard to argue that those penalties weren't deserved. But why was he so incensed? Mikkola, again. Sneaky elbow.
This guy, Mikkola.
I mean, why is Sabrin reacting that way? You even watch the replay, it's hard to see the elbow.
He's motioning to his head.
Well, afterward. He felt it. I watched the replay, the camera angle. It's not obvious that Mikkola, he does the chicken wing like Seth Jones did. So if you're the referees, this is what I said on the air. If you're the referees, you're like, all right, the Lightning are up by 1. They've already been penalized a bunch of times. We just had the Gensel play where Gensel was high-sticked, right? And that was missed. And then he took a shot from Greer, reacted, got the extra 2. If you're the referees, you're like, okay, we can see that the Lightning are getting penalties a lot. We know we're calling them on the Lightning. Why is Sabrin going ballistic? What happened? This is a veteran guy. He may not be a veteran NHL guy, but he's a veteran guy. He would not have reacted that way if it was just a clean body check. How about conferring and being like, Mikkola again. Mikkola again. You don't think they watched the replays of what happened with Gensel in the game in Tampa? The fact that Mikkola didn't get any penalty there is hard to believe. Or if they're like, we're not sure what Mikkola did, but you know what? Forsling came in. Forsling, I mean, he didn't do a lot, but you don't need to give the Lightning 4 minutes there and nothing on the Panthers. That probably should have been a 2-minute power play for the Panthers, not 4. Look at all the others. There was a scrum where Crozier got an extra 2. There was a scrum at the end of the game. I forget who got the penalty at the end of the game. Looks like they gave an extra 2 to Bjorkstrand in 1927. That was the one at the end of the game where there was more shoving, and the Lightning were up 4-2 at that point. But, I mean, there were 4 instances where there was some activity. Douglas got an extra 2 for his fight with Cunnin.
Right.
So it's like, why are they giving the extra penalty to the Lightning? Or in the case of the Sabourin play, 2 extra penalties to the Lightning. They should have had 1 extra penalty there, in my opinion. So that was difficult to swallow. And then, of course, they missed. So of the fines, Sabourin got fined less than Lundell. Lundell got fined for high-sticking Gensel. Look, they missed it. They're human. But, like, why are you missing that? Why do you not have eyes ever? When you see Gensel, like I noticed Gensel was affected. I didn't see what happened because I was following the puck. I'm following the puck. What are the referees looking at?
Yeah, right.
And, of course, if Gensel had been cut, they could have gone back and reviewed it, right? But he wasn't. So that was frustrating. So high marks of the Lightning for getting through all those kills. You know, I was surprised to see that Jake Gensel, he played over 27 minutes. That is a career high for him in the regular season. All the years he's been playing hockey. Now, it's not a career high if you include the playoffs. He's played probably a lot more. I think didn't the Rangers and Penguins have a triple overtime game a few years ago? Gensel has played a lot more than 27 minutes in a game, but in a regular season game, that was a high watermark for him in a game that ended in regulation. It didn't even go into overtime. That's because he played over 7 minutes shorthanded, and he saw a lot of power play time too. Why was he out there shorthanded so much? Because Hagel was not in the game. So he and Cirelli were a duo, and Gensel scored shorthanded in what was maybe the biggest goal of the game. So let me segue to the hockey part. Lightning, I thought, had the upper hand in that game 5-on-5. I thought they started well. They I thought were pressing on the Panthers, but it seemed like every time you turned around, they got called for a penalty. So they called for a penalty early in the game. They kill the penalty. They do a pretty good job killing the penalty. Penalty ends. 2 bad bounces off Lightning players. It comes to Lewis Arena in front. He swats it in. It's like, are you kidding me? Panthers, again, benefit from a break.
Some puck luck.
They got some puck luck there. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't say again, because the game in Tampa, they earned everything they got. But Lewis Arena's like, thank you very much. He's standing in front. Puck comes right to him. Swats it in. 1-0. Shortly thereafter, the Lightning take another penalty. So now they're on the kill, potentially going out 2-0, and Gensel scores shorthanded. That is a huge momentum-turning goal.
I thought that, by the way, that was the biggest goal of the game. I know there were some people who felt like Holmberg was because
that was a big goal too.
It happened at the end, and I'm not minimizing that, of course. But, you know, shorthanded goal on the road.
Look at what the Panthers did to the Lightning in the meeting here in Tampa, where Reinhardt scored early shorthanded. It's
I just feel like that does something.
Play.
You know, whatever that is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I can pull out my notes from that game in terms of the stats. I mean, the Panthers only had 5 first-period shots. And, you know, that was with the 2 power plays that they got. I thought the Lightning did well. And then Cirelli also put the puck in. That was correctly disallowed because he did glove it in, but he got a break, right? I mean, it was he drew a penalty on Ekblad on that play. So that was on the same kill. And then the Holmberg goal at the end of the first period, which is a huge goal. In the last minute is a huge goal. In the last 10 seconds is a huge goal. I mean, last night the Canadiens got a very big goal with 3 seconds left that got them a point. But the Holmberg goal gave the Lightning the lead for good. And, you know, he said when he signed with the Lightning, he's like, I feel I have more offense to give. And he is certainly on pace to set career highs. I mean, he's got what now? 6 goals. He's got goals in 3 straight games.
You mentioned
that was a very nice finish.
I don't know if you told this on the air. I mean, it was nothing earth-shattering, but I think maybe you and I were talking about it. You had a chance when they were playing Toronto, kind of talk to the Maple Leafs people who saw Holmberg on a regular basis and was like, look, guy did everything really but score. Yeah. You know, they wanted a little bit more offense. I think Holmberg knew that. And sometimes when you come to another team, things change. But, partner, I think you and I would agree. I mean, it's been a nice surprise to see him start to contribute a little bit more and make that line, wherever he's playing, a pretty effective one.
So his high water mark for goals in a season is 7. He had 7 each of the last 2 years with Toronto, but he played 68 games last year and 54 the year before. This year is probably closest to his rookie year, where he only played 37 games, but he had 5 goals.
Yeah.
And 13 points.
Yeah.
This year he has 6 goals in 31 games. He's up to 12 points.
Not bad.
Not bad. But, you look at the last 2 years, +4 last year, +11 the year before. So,
right.
I mean, he was doing a lot of good work to make sure that the Leafs didn't get scored on when he was out on the ice.
Correct.
Because if you have only 17 points, this is 23-24, 54 games played, he had 17 points, +11. If you're only out on the ice for 17 goals where you are contributing, and then there are some others, obviously, where you're out on the ice where you're not getting a point, that just tells you, you're not really getting scored on a lot. I don't have the exact numbers. You can look up and see how many goals he was out on the ice for, against, and for. But +11 is impressive because he's not seeing the same kind of ice time that Matthews was seeing, right? So anyway,
for sure.
Holmberg's goal made it 2-1, and then the Lightning get a 2-on-1. A nice play by Gonsalves to start that 2-on-1 too. He kind of worked it out to center ice, and then Point and Kucherov had a 2-on-1, and they make both backhands. Point a backhand pass across, Kucherov backhand finish, so it's 3-1. Panthers score a beautiful goal on a power play where all 5 guys touched the puck. They won the faceoff, so now it's 3-2. The Marchand goal came at 7:05 of the second. So, and I mentioned, those 7 power plays that the Panthers had. The first of those was the Gensel penalty with 1:30 left in the second period. So they had 7 power plays in the last, 21 minutes and 30 seconds of the game. That's crazy.
And that
they had so many power plays,
and that one happened
to the end
quickly.
of the game.
Correct that goal. It was like 7 seconds into the power play.
Yeah,
it was tic-tac-toe.
and they won the draw. It was like they won the draw. It went
Incredible.
back to the point. All 5 guys touched the puck. Point to circle to corner to slot to the other side. Marchand had an open net. That was a beautiful goal and very well executed. But it was the only one that they got on the power play. So all the other power play chances they had, the Lightning were able to hang in there. Now there was one where Jones wasn't available. That affects things a little bit. I think they might have had one where Marchand was in the box. That affected a little bit. But they had ample opportunity to tie the game, and Vasilevsky was great. So it was a grinded out sort of win. It was an emotionally draining kind of win. It was a physically draining kind of win. If you have 10 penalty kills, you are really leaning on your penalty killers. Declan Carlisle played a career high in the NHL. He played over 18 minutes. He had over 7 minutes shorthanded. He joined me post-game. I'm like, you've ever had a game like this before? He's like, well, in the preseason, Well, preseason is a little different.
A little different, right?
Yeah. I don't know that he's ever played 7 minutes plus shorthanded, even in the AHL, but he did it and really helped the Lightning get through that game successfully. So good for them to complete the back-to-back sweep. They have another back-to-back to start the road trip. This one is a much different back-to-back, although the Kings, I don't think, play New Year's Eve. So they'll be facing a rested team on New Year's Day, but their afternoon game with easy, it's relatively speaking easy. At the height of rush hour, it can be difficult to get from Anaheim to LA, but on New Year's Eve the game is at 1:00 local time in Anaheim. So the Lightning will be on the road by like 5:00. They'll get to LA at a reasonable amount of time and get ready for the game on Saturday.
And we'll talk more about this tomorrow.
Not Saturday, Thursday.
Yeah.
The San Jose game is Saturday.
The Anaheim game is going to be interesting right out of the gate for that trip because I don't want to say they're similar. Maybe they are to Montreal. They've got a lot of young players who are very talented. So it's one of those where this is where you want to be disciplined a little bit. This is where you want to not give them too many odd man rushes because they have some game breakers on that team, and they've been playing obviously better this year than they have in the previous year. So that's going to be interesting to watch in that dynamic. We do have a couple of questions we want to get to here, partner, before we sign off.
We had a lot to cover today. We'll have a more kind of breathe show tomorrow. We can take more questions.
This one comes from Dale, wants to know what's the difference now with Gage Gonsalves over the last handful of games. That's been a hot topic recently. Is it just playing with better players, or is he playing angry, as we like to talk about?
I think there's a little bit of that. Maybe it was a shock to him to be scratched, not just once, but 4 straight games. But however you want to put it, did it light a fire under him? Nobody's actually asked him the question, like, did it light a fire under you to be scratched for 4 straight games? But he's playing he's playing an invested sort of game. He's engaged, no pun intended, in these games. And he has the skill. I mean, we've talked about this, about him going back to last year. Remember we had our loyal listener, viewer, I'm not sure if she's still viewing us, Bolts fan Syracuse is always like, Gage needs to play in the top 6. He needs to play last year. That was what she was banging the drum on that. And we were kind of like, well, he needs to earn his spot to play in the top 6. Right. And last year he did in the second half of the year. He wasn't exclusively in the top 6, but he did play in the top 6 and did well because he has the skill to do it. This year there were too many quiet games. So Coop was like, all right, take a break. We're going to go with other guys ahead of you. Some of that may have been based on the opposition and the Lightning. I'm trying to remember when he was scratched. I'm pretty sure that he didn't play. It might have been during the losing streak. The Lightning, because I remember he scored in Detroit after Thanksgiving. I'm trying to remember when he started to be scratched. It might have been when they beat Montreal and New Jersey, and so the lineup was winning, and so they kept him out. So anyway, he got back in, and since he has come back in, he is playing with fire in his belly and making the sorts of plays that we saw last year. I mean, that was a pass right on Kucherov's tape on the breakaway. And he knew, he saw it. Like, he saw that puck coming to him. He's like, I know what I'm doing with this puck before it even reaches me.
You know, when you are a guy who is unproven at the NHL level for the most part, but your skill set suggests you should be playing in a top 6 role, unless you're a first-round, top 5, top 10 overall pick, I do get the sense that the leash is a bit shorter with those type of players to show something early and often. And I think that is a challenge for a lot of younger players, partner. How many times have you and I talked about Geeky and kind of, you know, where does he fit in? But when he does get an opportunity to play, he's got to make a splash. And if you don't make a splash and you get demoted or you get scratched, it sometimes takes a little bit more of a ramp up to get back into that top 6. And then once you do, you've got to produce. You've also got to be responsible defensively. You only get so many chances. So that could go into Gonçalves. Is he playing angry? Is he playing with more fire? Yeah, and there may be a variety of reasons for that. But maybe one of those reasons is, look, I mean, they've sent a message to me that what I was doing before wasn't working. And it wasn't working specifically if I was in a top 6. So if I want to stay in a top 6 and I get another chance to do it, I've got to produce now.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know how many more chances that's going to happen or he's going to get, but this version of Gage Gonçalves is the one that we kind of saw last year, late in the season.
I agree.
And I think it for him to stay in this, he can't have these games where you go 5 games and we don't notice you.
Right, but I'm not sure. Like, he started showing this when he wasn't in the top 6. Remember, he scored a huge goal against Carolina playing on a line with James and Paul. Wasn't that the line? I know James set him up. I think Paul was the center. So he was playing on, technically, what do you want to call it, the 4th line, the 3rd line. I think he and James have some chemistry. So when James comes back into the lineup, and we'll have to check on the Sabrin situation. Hopefully he's not banged up too badly. But I do think James is going to come back into the lineup. And I'll be curious if they reunite those two, because I think they have a little chemistry between the two of them. On the other hand, Gonçalves has showed well with Point and Kucherov the last 2 games. Even in the game in Florida, the problem there was they didn't have a lot of time together 5-on-5, because once we got into the second half of the game, there was very little 5-on-5 play. It was mostly special teams. And those guys were sitting for a long, long time. Gonçalves, Point, and Kucherov don't kill penalties. So the whole game was just, there was no rhythm in the second half of that game.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for Gonçalves, because he was not seeing top power play time either. Like, he would be on the second unit. But
yeah, I think that's fair. But I think we all would agree. Maybe not. I do. I think he's probably most impactful playing with other skilled players.
Yeah.
And I think he needs to make the most of it. And let's see what happens. This one comes from John. He says, guys, we've talked so much about the depth on the back end. Which players that have been called up from Syracuse this year have really played above the line? So I guess he wants
Can
to
we
see
say
this
all
analysis.
of them?
Yeah,
honestly.
And I don't know if there's been one that's maybe.
I mean, Destu has established
better?
himself as a regular. So, I mean, maybe him. Tell you what, though, for Declan Carlisle to play over 7 minutes shorthanded against the Florida Panthers tells you what the Lightning think of him. And I understand he's been up and down a little bit more than some of the other guys, but he's been very, very impressive.
Yeah. He has been. Carlisle had a lot of jump in his game, I felt like, particularly in the second period. There was a shift where he was just skating all over the ice. And that, there's moments where it stands out. Like, that stood out. That was pretty impressive. Crozier, you and I have talked about his skill set, for a bit now. And he's getting a chance to play regularly. Maybe the injury is hopefully behind him a little bit.
I think he's found his rhythm.
I think so, too.
I mean, his numbers aren't really eye-popping, but he's doing – I mean, that's unfair. He scored a goal. Remember that goal that he scored against was the Panthers. He popped in, but he's a plus player. He's chipping in some points here. He had an assist on the Gensel shorthanded goal, actually. So he doesn't look like he's getting his feet back underneath him because he just missed like 6-7 games due to injury. He's into a rhythm now, which is really important because the Lightning continue to battle the injury bug, especially on the blue line. It does sound like Chernak's return is close, though. Coop said maybe California. So we'll see if Chernak is able to come back at some point on the road trip.
I think.
And it sounds like they're going to wait until McDonough is, quote unquote, right. I think that was what Coop said after the game. It's like, we need to get him right.
Need to get it. And, look, that probably gets. I don't want to say less play right now than it should because of how well the Lightning have been able to handle all of the injuries. But the McDonough thing, I mean, just as Coop said, all of these guys should be coming back this year. Mm-hmm. I think he finally kind of said, look, we just need to get these guys healthy. And, Lilleberg, too, sometimes we forget. I mean, there's 4 defensemen there, partner, that – I mean – you want to say the back end's going to look drastically different when the playoffs begin, and I know I'm putting the cart before the horse, but, I mean, you're talking about 4 starters, right? I mean, it really is. I mean, John Cooper and the staff are going to have to really make some tough decisions when everybody is healthy because these guys have put their foot down and said, let's get a seat at the table here.
Yeah.
And they've done a lot of great things. Let me see how much time do we have left. Let me see if we have more for this one. Guys, how do you think Hagel looked in his return to the lineup yesterday? This came from Jim.
Well, Jim Hagel was asked that question. He said the first game back is always a challenge. So, look, he didn't miss like a month, but he missed, 4 or 5 games? 4 games with the holiday break in there. That's not an insignificant amount of time. So, I mean, just using his own words, I think he was feeling better as the game progressed, and hopefully he'll get into a rhythm. He had a big hit on, was it Sammy Blais on an offside? That it was like a bang-bang play. But it was good to see that he was engaged physically. And I mean, the Lightning did go 4 for 4 in the penalty kill last night against an excellent power play team, and Hagel was a part of that.
Who did he get chippy with in the game last night? Against Montreal.
Well, he hit Blais. I mean, is that the play you're thinking about where it was after an offside?
And Anderson came from the side and started swinging. He was swinging it at Hagel.
That was later. Yeah, that was in the other end.
I was holding my breath on that because I think it might have been an icing call.
Yes,
I think
it was.
Hagel,
he bumped Matheson.
And Matheson, I actually I wish Hagel wouldn't have done that because I do think that was preventable. You want to be calculated a little bit in how aggressive you are, particularly just returning from the lineup. So there's an icing call. I thought Matheson, clearly beat Hagel to the puck. I know there was some talk about that. and Hagel gave him a little nudge. I didn't think needed to go that route. I mean, we've seen that a lot. There was no need to. Matheson doesn't back down. He's a strong guy. He's not a fighter, but he's a pretty strong guy. And then Anderson kind of loops around and goes towards Hagel. And if you watch the scrum, he's actually trying to punch him in the face. Now, look, you can't protect Hagel every time. He's not going to be playing in a bubble. I get that. But I think you do have to look at things big picture a bit and take your chances when they're appropriate. I think DeStew actually jumped in. And one thing I have noticed when guys last night with Hagel, like Sorelli was there to kind of jump in, almost to kind of like get away. Hagel, we don't want you. And DeStew did the same thing with Anderson. Anderson's a big boy.
No, Anderson's a big boy.
And so you just want to be careful in moments like that. You can't control all of them, but it was interesting watching that whole dynamic. Anderson actually had himself a pretty good game.
He did.
Especially early on. You could see the power forward moves coming from him. He's never known to be a great skater, but felt like he had his legs a little bit last night and made some pretty impressive plays. But he can drop the gloves. He is a tough guy. And I just thought that was one of those moments in the game last night. I was watching. I was like, kind of holding your breath a little bit, like, get away.
Yeah.
Just get away. And you never know how those scrums go. But I think Hagel will be fine. I did think it was interesting, before we sign off, the play was it Hagel coming out of the penalty box? And Kucherov was wide open.
Came out of the box.
Or Kuch came out of the box and fed Hagel. I think Ben Pierce asked the question, would you have liked to seen both of those guys, though, go in on a 2-on-0? And I get it. That would have been sweet because I think Kucherov in those moments, of course he's going to pass. But it would have been pretty fun to watch how he was going to deliver it. But you can't really quibble with a guy who has a breakaway with all of that speed, basically from center ice.
Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely.
And I don't think Hagel's great on the breakaways, but I'll take my chances with him coming at full speed. And that was pretty. I think he'll get there. He'll be fine. But just a couple of other observations. All right, so tomorrow, did we say we're going live?
Yeah.
Right? We're
going
to go live tomorrow.
Coast, but yes, live.
You'll be on the West Coast. So you'll be taking in the New Year, partner, and
yes.
on the West Coast.
We have had a few years where I'm literally like on the bus at New Year's, looking to call home. But this year we'll be
different
in a hotel room. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Or wherever we're going to be. I don't know, but I'm kind of a homebody. So New Year's on the East Coast will be 9 p.m. California time. So maybe I'll celebrate New Year's twice. once with my family. And you.
That's right.
On the East Coast, and then 3 hours later, yes.
All right.
But for Power Lunch purposes, tomorrow live, we have no show, though. I keep getting the
Wednesday and Thursday,
Wednesday and Thursday, the game days, because they're afternoon game days, and then we'll have a show Friday.
Perfect. All right, well, safe travels. Great job, as always. Yes. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks to Steve Versnick for getting us on. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.